So welcome everybody to the Pilot Grants Essentials program, a Pilot Grant Essentials uh, little program we're going to do today for info session, kind of go over what we are, what we offer, and kind of the couple things to kind of go over how to apply for a grant, kind of what to expect for the application process, and some tips to kind of help you out. So to start off, my name is Joshua Taylor. If you've emailed me, you've probably received a million emails from me going back and forth about the applications, kind of discussing your ideas, and kind of what we do. So I always like to start off with kind of talking about the identity and mission of CTSI because I think it's a good way of getting an idea of why we offer our grants and how we go about evaluating them. So start off, we are funded by the National Institute of General Medical Services Sciences under the NIH, so just one of the small in-houses under them. And we have the Clinical and Translational Research ID Award, which is made to kind of help out states that don't get a lot of NIH participation, whether that's clinical trials, funding in general, that kind of stuff. So collectively, these states are known as IDEA states, and they work together to kind of improve health outcomes in these areas that don't get a lot of national funding. So together, we really want to work to establish cross-cutting research partnerships among the CTSA partner sites, which include WVU, Marshall, CAMC, pretty much everywhere that everyone here is from, as well as the other IDEA states to kind of help improve the health of West Virginia as a whole and really the Appalachian region. We also extend outwards. We have partnerships through our iScore service that now reach out to Nebraska, some of these states that I know Montana is a big one, Hawaii, just states that don't have that huge medical infrastructure. We all work together for the betterment of health. So that's kind of where we come from. And how we go about that is through our focus and our pilot program. So when I say focus, this is really what CTSI focuses on as areas that we think could use some more help. So really what CTSI really wants to be is an academic home, and through our pilot program and our other services, a catalyst for clinical and translational research. What I mean by this is we want to provide the funding, we want to provide the support, and we provide the professional development to make research and clinical trials in these areas succeed. So for CTSI, our focus areas are the ones that we have here in this nice little wheel. So they are addiction, emerging epidemics of any kind. This includes COVID, HPV, HIV, anything. A big one this year is going to be tick-borne diseases, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, chronic lung disease, and pretty much any form of cancer. Now, these are our focus areas, but I like to think of them more as a guideline rather than a set of rules. So if you have a project that doesn't quite fit into these focus areas, it's totally fine. We just want to fund really good research that helps the people of our state. Whether or not it falls in these focus areas isn't our huge concern. You do get a benefit if you fall into here, but it doesn't hurt your project if it doesn't. So, talked a lot about what we are. Now I'm going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So first off, we're going to go over the pilot grant program. We're going to talk about the eligibility, what it means to be eligible, where you can do your research, that kind of thing. I'm going to go over our PyStar application process. This is our new application portal. And then we're going to talk about what's required paperwork-wise, because that's always a sticking point. Along the way, I'm going to discuss some tips about kind of what to expect with the application, help to maximize your score, help to make sure your application pretty much stands out. And then we're going to talk about all the additional services that would be available to you if you were to get an award, and even if you're just interested in what we offer. I'm going to end with a discrete Q&A session, but if you have any questions at any time, feel free to raise a hand in Zoom, type it in chat, excuse me, or even ask at any time. I will often stop and be like, is there any questions before we move on? But it doesn't interrupt my flow if you ask questions at any point, so I want this to be a discussion, so if anytime you have anything, just let me know. Yes, and this presentation will be available email. We will be recording it as it is right now, and we will be putting it on our YouTube page. So we'll get that to you after the presentation. Cool. So jumping right in, let's talk about eligibility. So the first thing I always like to say with eligibility is that this is not limited to just WVU. WVCTSI has multiple partner sites across the state at WVU, Marshall University, Charleston Area Medical Center down at CAMC Charleston, the School of Osteopathic Medicine down in Lewisburg, and another one that's not on here is WVU East out in Martinsburg. The only requirement is that whoever's going to be applying the principal investigator must hold a faculty or faculty equivalent position at one of the partner institutes. So as long as you have that, you're good to apply. And even if you have a really great idea here and you're not in one of those, we can help you find a PI to kind of apply with. We really, really want to encourage you to apply if you have a great project because at the end of the day, we all care about improving the health of West Virginia. So as long as you have something, we can make it work. Another big thing, and we'll discuss this as we go over the application, is you can't also have funding from another federal source, such as Embry or Cobry, but that's usually a case by case basis. And if you have a question about that, talk to me and we will figure it out together. So that's how you be able to apply. Let's talk about what's actually here to apply to now. So right now we have our open grant, which is this one up here at the top, open for applications as of this very moment. So our open is our primary developmental funding opportunity for both clinical and translational research. As long as you have some kind of relation to one of those topics, even broadly, you can apply for this one. So this grant is for $50,000, and we can guarantee 12 months for a translational or a bench-side project and 18 months for a clinical or human subject project. I want to really emphasize this 18-month limit here, though, because of the way CTSI is structured, all of our pilot projects must be closed out on May 30th, 2027. That's just when we go for a renewal, and to prevent any disruption in your services or disruption in your ability to hold the grant, we just have to have them all closed before we go up to renewal, just in case something would happen, nothing happens on your side and your project keeps going well. So this one, the open grant, does require a letter of intent. This is due July 31st, so at the end of this month, with the full application being due September 17th. Now, I want to put a little caveat on the September 17th date. So we do a full review of the letter of intent. When you submit it, it will be reviewed by two individuals who will give it a good look over, experts in your field, and give you a score and feedback. This sometimes takes a little bit more time than anticipated. So no matter what happens, we're going to let you know about your LOI, and then 4 weeks from there, the due date for the full application will be announced, or that's when the full application will be due. So you'll have 4 weeks from when you learn about your LOI, even if it is a little bit later than we anticipate, to the full application due date to get your whole application together. So September 17th is the due date that's listed right now. That may be pushed if we take a little bit more time with the LOI than we initially expect. Now, these other ones are the ones we are planning to offer here in the fall. I say just fall because we don't really have the set due dates for this yet because we're still trying to figure out some timing things and making sure how many we want to do for open, so on and so forth. So Jumpstart is our primary, we use this one for preliminary projects or getting a project to a manuscript submission state, or even for helping you get some more data prior to a grant submission of an R01 variety or a K variety. This one is much smaller though, with only 10K and a duration of 6 months. So like I said, very short. Just get a project going, get it across the line, either or. This one does not have a letter of intent, and like I said, the due date is going to be fall. Right now, we're aiming for about a November due date, but that will be announced in the next coming weeks, exactly when that is. Due to how open and Jumpstart is structured this year, if you have a really great idea for open and it doesn't work out, we can talk about it and see if Jumpstart may be available for you as well, and see if that might be a better application process for you. Moving on, we also have a rapid response coming up this year. Rapid response is my personal favorite because we use it to kind of address emerging health issues we see in West Virginia and Appalachia as a whole. This year, we will be accepting applications for projects that deal with tick-borne diseases, which I'm sure many of you have seen from all the public health declarations, all the different fears, all that. We're going to address that directly with that. So as long as you have an application that somewhat ties into that, you can be eligible for this for $30,000 over a 12-month project period. Again, no letter of intent is required for this, and this will be due again in the fall sometime. Again, aiming for that November-ish due date. And then finally, this one is very niche, but I always like it as well, is our launch grant. So the launch grant provides proof of concept funding to accelerate the translation of an intellectual property from idea to something that can be marketable. Like I said, very niche. But if you're interested in this one, please reach out to me because this one does require, we help you with protections for patents. We work with the tech transfer office to make sure any idea you have is legally safe and make sure that it's owned by you and your university. This is for $50,000 and with a 9-month project period. It does require a letter of intent, but this period is going to be a little bit smaller than what you see with open. and that full application again will be due sometime in fall. So that was a fire hose of information on all of our grants. Is there any questions right now before we jump into how to actually apply for them? Cool, cool. So all of our grants live on our PyStar site. I actually do not know where the name comes from, but I'm going to go ahead and jump off of here to go ahead and send this in chat for you all. But PyStar is an in-browser application portal where you'll be able to get all your application will be submitted in there, your reviews will be given back to you, and your final funding decisions will also be all received in PyStar. It's secure, confidential, and really user-friendly compared to other things. If you've ever used iLabs before with us, it is much better. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've sent the link in chat, but I'm also going to have it up here on the screen. So now everyone should see PyStar. So our landing page here has all of our upcoming opportunities. As of now, only the open letter of intent is available to be applied to. If you clicked on these, you would see this RFA is not open. But you see our open grant letter of intent has a brief description, has the due date here, and then it has learn more and apply. So if you would want to apply, you would end up following that link, go to here, click learn more and apply. Again, has a brief description talking about kind of what we're looking for. The due date is listed here very clearly, and it also has a solicitation here to eventually find the RFA itself with all the details. Now, on this page, there are two buttons you can click to go further. The first is Contact Manager. That sends an email directly to me. So if you have any questions, you can click that. And then here is Apply Now. So the PyStar application has two portions. It has the portion of the RFA where you write all your approach, your significance, all the fun stuff that comes up with writing a grant application, and then our title page. So the title page, when you click on that, it's going to ask you to sign in. So this sign in does require an institute email. And by institute, since we work with Marshall, CAC, and such, we're pretty open to what we have here. So you can have a WVU one. As you can see, I have my mix and my HSC here. But a WVU medicine is also well. Vandalia Health, Marshall. I know we have some osteopathic school ones as well. Pretty much anything that our partners have come up with, we have here that you can sign in with. If you do run into an issue with that, though, please let me know and I can edit it on my side. I have pretty tight control for PyStar, so if you have any questions about it, usually I'm a good first place to start. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in here with this. I'm using a guest one right now because I want to show you actually what you guys would experience. So when you click in to apply now, you'll be taken to this page. This page just basically asks you for the basic front page information that comes with your grant. First, it's going to ask for a title. Just fill it in there. It's going to ask for the primary investigator or principal investigator here, any cooperating PIs, and then it's going to ask you for your priority health area. Right here are the 6 ones we talked about before. If you don't fall within any of those 6, you just click Other here, and you specify exactly what it is there. This helps me get reviewers a little bit quicker for you so that the turnaround time is much faster. It's totally okay if you don't fall into one of these 6 areas. And if you want to give me even more information, say you're cancer and you want to put what type of cancer there, totally fine as well. I use this information to help us just really make your application process a lot better. And then finally, an estimated budget, and then whether or not you're a human subject or non-human subject. This right here is going to be really important as we go into the application itself, because that will determine kind of the process you take after submitting your application. And then finally, you're going to upload that other half I talked about earlier. That's all the writing, the significance, so on and so forth. And then you can preview submission here to see all the stuff. Of course, I have no information, so it's blank, but you should have a little bit more. In close preview, always make sure you hit submit or save draft. If you do not click one of these, it will not be sent to the correct folder, and then you won't get scored. But again, if you think something's wrong or anything's going wrong, just shoot me an email and we'll figure it out. Up here, you can open the solicitation in a new tab, and this will take you to the download solicitation, which is the RFA itself. So I'm sure many of you have seen this already. Like I said, just lives right here within our funding opportunity page itself. Now, this is just the run-of-the-mill RFA request for applications that you see with every grant from NIH level down. But here we go into extreme detail about what's needed. I'm going to highlight some parts here, and then we're going to jump over and talk about what's required for every application versus what's required as you get more complex with your application. So starting off at the letter of intent is listed right here at the top. There's a template here that you can click here that just has everything already set up for you. You can just fill out that template and then submit it down here in the proposal file upload, and you're done with your letter of intent. I will say be extremely careful to stay within the limits of the letter of intent because we're trying to be a little bit more strict on that stuff. So if you go beyond the 30 lines for abstract page for stuff, I'm not going to say we won't consider your application, but it will. We're just being really strict on it lately. And by we, I mean our leadership and review team. Do note that you will be told whether or not you're invited to apply to the next level. We will not accept applications that are not approved through the letter of intent process. Just save yourself time, make sure you get approved. Now, I mentioned earlier about the human subject being important. That's because this paragraph here determines your next step. So, as part of the application process, we do require all human subjects to present at our PI Academy. Our PI Academy is a panel of experts, stakeholders, and just general researchers with CTSI. And I always warn people ahead of presenting to them that they will politely tear you apart. And what I mean by that is that they care about your project. They want to see you succeed. So they're going to try to find every obstacle you're going to face, everything, and they're going to tell you about it. And sometimes they're a little bit blunt. But at the end of the day, it helps your project. Really, we see a lot of improvement score-wise before and after this. But I highly encourage it, but I always warn people just expect it to be a little bit blunt. Big thing to note with this is that it is due before the full application due date. So not the letter of intent, but the full application. If you're doing human subjects, you have to present this. That's all handled by Kylie Smith, whose email is listed here. But if you have any questions about that or want me to help you out along that process, let me know. Typically, you have a quick meeting to kind of get a slide deck, kind of what to expect, and then you have the full time, which is an hour, where you will talk for about 10 to 15 minutes, and the rest of the time will be spent getting feedback on your project. I do want to add with this that it is better to do this sooner rather than later because there's only so many spots to do this. And if you're a human subjects and you don't have it done by the time we get that due date, that's a problem. And additionally, getting your feedback earlier gives you more time to change your proposal based on the feedback before the full application is submitted. I see we have a question in chat. So the question is, does the PI have to do submission or can you delegate someone to submit it on their behalf? You can delegate it. We have a lot of students who end up doing the actual application process, and I think that is a very rewarding experience for students. Just make sure the PI is fully aware of what goes into the application because I've had sometimes the communication break down. But you can delegate it fully through. That is totally fine as long as all the information is accurate. Moving forward through our RFA. So the budget, big thing here, just 50,000 for that 12-month for translational, 18-month for clinical. But another thing that people tend to miss is that you can qualify for an additional $5,000 if you include a student on the project. So we would like to see medical students here. And the way we typically kind of handle that is you budget in that extra $5,000. And then once it comes for a kickoff and such, I verify that's part of it. And we make sure everything is in line for that. Big thing with students though is that their pay is a little weird. We're going to touch on that again once we get down to the budget allowable cost. But we do want to encourage you to use a student here. That $5,000 doesn't have to go to paying a student. You can use it for anything. That's just an incentive to include a student and give them a good research experience. Compliance just talks about city certification and all the regulatory stuff. I'll go over that in detail here in a second. I do want to talk about the past funded pilots and resubmission. So past funded pilots, if you've been funded by us before, we just want to have a paragraph to kind of discuss how this project you're now submitting differs from any project you've submitted before. If it's a continuation, that's totally fine. If it's a next round, it's totally fine. If it's totally different, that's even better. Basically, just let us know that this is not the same project and you're not just asking money to do the same thing over and over again. With the significant prior funding, pretty much if you have an R01 for the same project, we're going to look at it a little differently. It won't affect your score, but it will affect the discussion. And then resubmissions, we allow for one resubmission per submission. One resubmission per grant type. So if you submit to open before and don't get it, you can resubmit that up to one more time before you can't submit that project again with us. That's just to prevent you submitting the same thing over and over again and just getting feedback and not really going anywhere. So the medical students, that's usually by a case-to-case basis. We're pretty open to allowing graduate students and medical students. Um, we can talk about that one-on-one usually. It really is a case-by-case basis. Big thing with that is the payment has to be through hourly, which sometimes creates some issues for graduate students versus medical students. But I'll touch on that in extreme detail here in a bit because it is a stickier point with how the budgets work. So all part one is just how to apply. Part two is the full text announcement. This is just basically saying this is what we do. This is the eligibility requirements we discussed before, and then just some restrictions. So big thing with restrictions is you cannot have two CTSI funded sources at the same time. So you can't be a pilot project and a research scholar. You can't be an open pilot project and a jumpstart. Pretty much, we just don't want you to double dip. You can only have one funding mechanism from us at a time. If it does work out that something happens where you have to apply with another one or you have a great idea, you could be a co-I on one and then a PI on the other, and we can kind of move that around to make it work. You just can't be the PI on two separate projects. Additionally, the IDEA program does restrict you from having two of the same funding source. This includes the INBRI and the COBRI awards. Typically, this is a rare case, and if you have a question about this, we can talk and work that out. And then any faculty that are within the CTSI organization, we can't have you hold a PI as a grant. You can be a co-I, but you can't be the PI, just to avoid any biases. Awesome. Now we get to the fun stuff, all the minute details of the application itself. So I said before, the page limits are something we're really going to be strict about this time around. So make sure you stay within the limits, stay within the line limit, all that, everything that's listed right here below. Just make sure you stick to it. Formatting page margins and font colors, I'm not going to be super harsh on that, but I will encourage you to be as good as possible on this because it's a very good practice for grants that do care a lot more than us. NIH, if you don't use the right font, if you don't use the right margins, they will just throw it out. With us, we'll give you a sternly worded letter, but we won't throw you out. So just make sure you stay on top of it for the practice wise, but we're not going to throw your thing into the shredder if it's not formatted correctly. And then just another reminder, everything must be submitted as a single PDF by 5 p.m. on that final due date. With this single PDF, if you do have trouble making it merge or anything else, please let me know and I can help you out. Just give me some time. Don't send it to me at 4:59 on September 17th because I won't be able to get it together for you. Again, one PDF, do not scan it, so on and so forth. So the best way to know if you need something for your application is these next two parts. The first being table one, which is what required for all applications. So everything in this table is required for every single application, whether or not you're human subject, animal subject, clinical, translational, anything. So first off, all the forms live under this link here. I'm not going to click it because it will cause my shared screen to kind of have a breakdown. But if you click on here, it'll take you to all the NIH official forms, and we use the Word doc format while you're putting the application together. The first one is the face page. It's going to contain a lot of the same information as you filled out on PyStar, but it's good practice, again, to do it here as well, because that's what the NIH uses. We try to mimic that as best as possible. With this, if you have any question about what's required, or you don't have an answer, or don't have something to fill in, just let me know and we can figure it out whether or not you need to fill in a certain part. WVU and Marshall, we kind of have to fill out different parts just to kind of give us as much information as possible. It is only one page, so there is no content limit, but make sure you fill it all out, or communicate to me if you have a question about it. Up next is the project summary, relevance, and performance sites and other information. Again, we have a form for that here. Big thing with this is that the project summary or abstract should only be 30 lines. And then the relevance itself should only be 3 sentences. Basically, just get it across why this matters and why anybody reviewing it would care about your application. So that's all the preliminary stuff. All this stuff below here is the actual thick, meaty part of your application. We do use the continuation forms here, and we break it down to 6 pages total. The first page should be your specific aim and objectives. Make this very clear right off the bat so the reviewer knows what you're trying to do. and kind of how you're thinking about going about it. That should be kept to one page, and you must identify how this will help West Virginia patients and or communities. Again, like I said before, it doesn't have to fit into our focus area, but it does have to have a benefit to the area, even if it's like I want to do this basic science project to eventually expand the knowledge of this one field. It could be a first step along a pathway as long as you identify that this pathway is where you're going. Then from there, the research plan itself is broken down into 5 pages with significant sections all throughout. So I would like you to include, when you're doing this, a section heading for each part of hypothesis, background, significance, innovation, and approach. This is important because this is what we tell reviewers to review on. So having that in big, bold letters right there to show them, hey, this is my approach, this is my significance, will help them get through your application easier. And reviewers tend to review nicer when they're in a better mood. So make it easier on them. Your application will go well. Each part and what's required for each part is listed here. If you have any questions, again, feel free to let me know. But again, 5 pages for this, 1 page for the specific games. Moving on, you should include references for your what you include in your 6 pages from above. There is no limit on your reference pages, so include as many as you like, and as many are as needed to properly cite your sources. Moving on to disclosures. Disclosures are very rare, but if you have any questions, we have the policy here, and you can email me here. Again, no limit. And then the budget and budget justification. So the budget should be broken down in 2 forms. The first form is the detailed budget, which goes over every line item of what you intend to spend, say $100 for reagents, $200 to reserve a room that you need, $100 to travel to some place. But that should be broken down in the first form as a line item budget. The second form is the justification. For everything you include on that line item budget, I need a narrative written form of why or how you're about to spend that money. So, for example, if you're spending $200 on reagents, explain like, oh, I need $200 for an antibody to identify my one gene of interest, or I need to spend $1 to get certain supplies to run an assay. Basically, just matching up whatever you put in that line item, you're giving a description or justification why it's included. Again, you include that extra $5,000 if you include a student, and you have a maximum of $50,000. We will touch on this allowable stuff here after we finish this table, but I want to make it extremely clear what's allowed versus not allowed because we are in a weird environment, and I just want to make sure everything is as compliant as possible. Moving on, we do need an NIH biosketch for every key personnel. I'm going to take a second here to define key personnel. So key personnel in the definition of CTSI is a person involved on the project that if they were to be removed, the entire project would fall apart. So if you have a co-I who's doing half the project, they need a biosketch. But if you have a student that's just feeding the mice or doing data entry, we do not need a biosketch for them. Again, if you have a question, just let me know. And do keep these to 5 page each. So each biosketch is 5 pages each. We have links here to format each biosketch, but if you have any questions with that, I can help with that as well. Finally, you need a letter of support and a checklist. The letter of support should be from your immediate supervisor, just saying they're aware of the project and giving you the protected time or percent effort to complete the project. Additionally, if you have any collaborators that are outside the institute, say a consultant or a outside company you're working with, it's good to have a letter of support from them as well, just to indicate that they're aware that this project is coming and they're aware of their involvement in it. Again, only the one from the supervisor is required. Anything else is extra. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And then the final checklist is a great little way to make sure you have everything. It has everything we listed here above, and make sure you check it off as you go through. Include it at the end of your application. And additionally, if you would like to also include a table of contents, the forms that I've listed here all have a link to a table of contents there as well. That's not required, but it does, again, make the reviewer's life easier. And I'm always a fan of making the reviewer's life easier because they are the ones scoring you. But that's all the required stuff for every single application. Every single thing that's submitted should have all these items. You guys have any questions about this before I jump into the budget? Perfect. So budget, We're pretty open with the budget. We're not going to nickel and dime you and check every little thing, but we are going to make sure you fall within our requirements. So personnel is allowed, equipment is allowed, travel is allowed, with a caveat that we only allow $4,000 maximum of your entire grant to go through this. So just to give you context, this is for any travel. We are limiting now to only domestic travel, but you can travel to a conference on this. You can travel to a symposium, but it has to fit with under $4,000 of your entire budget. Materials and supplies. Do we have a question? Okay. Materials and supplies are totally allowed. Computer costs, subcontracts, and subawards. We'd have to kind of talk about that one and other direct cost. Publication such is also supported through this grant, but only for a maximum of $2,000. This just means you're not using the grant to only pay for publication cost. Uh, but we can talk about that and work through it. If you have any questions about either of those limits, we can go over those in a consult or ahead of your full application. Again, everything I said above is allowable, and it's also listed here exactly what's allowable. The pilot grant can support you as a PI, but only up to 10% of the award. So for this $50,000 award, we can only support up to $5,000 of your salary. Salary and fin support is allowed for clinical trainees, postdoctoral, clinical fellows, and such, but students are a little bit different. But again, all the stuff we described here is allowable, including participant reimbursement, specimen collection, publication, and conference travel. What's not allowed, first and foremost, is student stipends. We cannot pay students a flat stipend. We can, however, format it as an hourly pay as long as we have the hourly rate before the project starts. So what I mean by this is if you want to bring on a student, pay them, say, $100 for their time, you would break it down into $10 per hour for 10 hours per your department's HR requirements, and that's how you would include a student. We are going to be very, very, very strict on this going forward, specifically the needing the hourly rate before your project starts. Additionally, indirect costs are also not covered via our grants. And again, note on students, big here because that is something we are going to be focusing on very hard for the next round of grants. Now, that's all the required stuff, talking about the budget in depth. Everything else now is only as applicable. So you only include these items as they come, as they relate to your project. First off, human subject projects. If you're including human subjects, you have to use our human subject template. I'm going to touch on that a little bit in a second because it will help you determine whether or not you're a clinical trial, which is another important aspect of the regulatory side of pilot grants. Clinical protocol. If you're doing a clinical project, you do need to do an investigator-initiated protocol. It's basically just a questionnaire to help us help you get through the IRB process. WVU applicants will be supported by our Clinical Trials Center of Excellence, which will help you with the IRB process, even put it in for you with your input. Marshall and our other sites, we will help you with it, but they have their own group with it. If you're using vertebrate animals, we do need proof of IACUC submission prior to your application. So pretty much what this means is you don't need to have it approved. You don't need to have it already in place. We just need proof that you're going through it and are thinking ahead so that when we award the project to you, you're ready to hit the ground running. And we also have a page here for how to take care of the animal wellness as well as the own NIH PHS forms. Now, compliance is pretty much what we ask when we're asking for city training. So if you're working with animals, we need to have a city certificate that you were trained to work with animals, working with human subjects, biomedical research, so on and so forth. With these, we don't need every single documentation that you've ever done in city. We just need the relevant ones, and we only need them from the key personnel, as I described before. So if you're providing a biosketch for someone, you should also provide city certificate if needed for that person. If a person has a biosketch but is not going to be doing any animal research, you don't need a city certificate for them. Just use your judgment here, and I can also help you kind of pick what's needed and what's not needed. We do not have access to any of your IACUC or IRB records, though, so we will need you to submit those, and I will remind you multiple times if you are in our funding range and have not received those, to submit them to me. If you are an early stage investigator that's going to be serving as a PI, so early stage investigator means within 10 years of your terminal degree, you do need a mentorship plan. So this basically means that you have a senior investigator who will be there to help you out, kind of help answer any question you may have that may come from experience. This is a one-page attachment with the template here that pretty much just says, hey, we agree to communicate, I agree to answer their questions, and kind of be there to help them out. If you have any funding before, like I said, we do need you to describe that. And if it's a resubmission, we need you to describe that. Both of those have a page of one limit, but typically they're only about a half page each. So that's all the required information, whether or not you're doing a human subject, all of the stuff that you could possibly need for an application. Our review criteria focuses on the previously set NIH requirements of significance, investigators, innovation, approach, environment, external competitive, so on and so forth. And then we also take into account how you handle all the additional stuff. But that's it for the application itself. That's how we go through PyStar. Now I just really want to give you guys some tips on how to apply, how to go through it, and answer any questions you may have. So while I move over to back to the PowerPoint, do you guys have any questions?
Hi, Josh. I actually do.
Yeah.
This is Slavik speaking. So somehow I remember that there was a clause if PI wants to claim 10% of the
Mhm.
fund for the salary support. Didn't you expect that the chair or like it matches this? Did
Yes. So
okay.
that we just usually when that happens, if you were to claim the salary support, we'd have to discuss that. Just because there's some weirdness with each department. Each department's its own little beast at WVU. So if you do intend to claim that 10% support, including your budget, and we'll go through that process after you would be awarded.
Okay. So was it does it have to come from a department or, for example, from ORA and GE?
It depends. That's the wonderfulness of WVU is that we're kind of a conglomerate of everybody. So it would really depend on your department upon submission. So again, if you intend to claim that, cite it in your budget, and we will work through that together. And I see a chat real quick. So when would funds be handed out? I'm trying to get these done so you can start your project by the new year. So the May 30th, 2027 date, that's the last day that the funds would be active. The project can continue on beyond that, but we are not able to provide funds past that date due to how we're structured.
So
So,
sorry for interjecting. My last question is
oh, yeah.
along this line. So let's say if I currently have a CTSI award, which I know will end, let's say in October. So
Mhm.
I initiate this process in assumption that I will no longer be funded at the time.
That's a good question. I think you would be fine to start the process. You would just not be able to start this award until your other one
Sure,
ends. So,
sure. Okay, thanks.
yep. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to let me know. As you can see, I'm just answering as we go along. So, just a reminder, this is just required for all projects, biosketches for PI and key personnel, stage certificates as needed, and then the letter of support. I did want to also touch on the consultation from CTSI services. So, the consultation from CTSI services refers to if you want to do a biostats consult ahead of time. What I mean with this is if you need a power analysis or you want to get an idea of what your database would look like or what your metrics are going to look like, you are able to meet with our various services and we are able to say, hey, this person met with us. They have our seal of approval on this approach. But again, like with the Idea Lab, it does take time to get through. So you do this sooner rather than later and make sure you don't run out of time before your full application is due. And as needed, proof IACUC submission, human subjects, mentorship agreements. Now, this is the human subject template, the one that the link is in the RFA, but I'm going to go over some points here because this does help determine whether or not what you need to fill out, whether or not you're a clinical trial, so on and so forth. So questions 1.4a through 1.4d are the most important ones on here. Excuse me. You're going to answer all four of these to determine whether or not your study qualifies as a clinical trial. No to any one of these here is not a clinical trial. Yes to all four means you're a clinical trial. So, as you're filling this out as a human subject, you're going to fill all these out. If you have a no, go on through and so that determines whether or not you're a clinical trial and need that extra step of regulation, or you're just a human subject project and you don't need to go through the whole clinicaltrials.gov, have all the regulations of a clinical trial. This is also important as you move through the rest of the project and all the rest of the human subject template, where all projects must answer sections 2.1, 3.2 on here, kind of going about how you plan to protect your subjects, what is this going to be recruitment and retention, all the stuff of a normal human subject project. But then, oh, I don't have a transition there. Uh, Only clinical trials have to go on beyond 3.2. So if you're just human subjects, all the way to 3.2 is where you go. If you're a clinical trial, you fill out the rest of the sheet. If you have any questions about whether or not to answer yes or no to any of these questions up here, just let me know and I can help you out. Otherwise, fill it out and we can figure out if there's any issues as we go along. Again, if you're going to be doing a human subjects, you need to do the idea lab. I have Kylie's information here again, but if you have a question or want to get that started after this, shoot me an email and I can help facilitate that. Again, it's a panel of experts. They provide you really, really great feedback. Typically, we try to have a biostats on there as well to kind of give you an idea of how your biostats look, whether or not you have a good power, whether or not your metrics are appropriate, that kind of stuff. It is very, very useful. Additionally, if you would like to attend another person's PI Academy ahead of your own to kind of see how it goes, that is also allowed. We do require NDAs, though, to protect everybody's research and make sure that none of it gets passed around without it, just keep everything safe. Budget again, really hitting here, allowable, non-faculty personnel salary, materials, supplies, equipment, travel, publication costs, conference travel, all allowed, not allowed, faculty salary over 10%, indirect cost, student stipends, and bridge funding. Again, just going to really hit that student stipends one. That's a really big one that we've been struggled with in the past. If you have any questions about how to format it, again, just reach out to me and we'll figure it out. If you want to sign up for someone else's idea lab, you can just shoot me an email. If you're encouraged, we usually release, and I'm going to talk about our membership here. We usually release our schedule to our members, and then you can see which ones interest you and kind of go about that. They're a really great time. I cannot recommend them enough. Our panel of experts are great, and all the research we have is awesome to see. So, going to talk about our funding priorities. This is listed in the RFA, but I wanted to bring it up here again as well, because this will determine whether or not you get deductions on your score. So when I say deductions, that's a good thing here because we score on the 1 to 9 NIH scale, 1 being the best, 9 being the worst. I just think of it as golf. So when you get a deduction, that's a good thing. So as an applicant, you can qualify for up to 1 point of deduction, with each one of the ones I have listed here being worth 0.25 of a point. So if you're an early stage investigator, which means you're within 10 years of your terminal degree, whether that's a fellowship, MD, PhD, anything, you qualify for 0.25 of deduction. If a clinician is leading the proposal, you qualify for 0.25 deduction. That same goes for projects that utilize our practice-based research network. Partner Institute PIs as Marshall, CAMC, our thematic research priorities, the focus areas I mentioned above. If you have any of these, you get a 0.25 deduction, and if you have 4 of them, you get that full point off, and that's the maximum you can get. With these research priority areas, if you're not sure if you fit into one of those areas, let me know, and we can talk about it. I can help you figure it out and all that. I will mention that these do not go into your scoring while it's being reviewed. These are all applied after the review is done. So the reviewers don't look at your project with these in mind. The reviewers don't take off the deduction themselves. That is all done post hoc after the scores are in to keep it consistent where our scoring committee adds these up and not the reviewers themselves. So this is all done after reviews are done and as you get them. Now, I always like to touch on some insider tips, as I call them, about kind of what to expect with your review. So what reviewers are going to be looking for is future directions. They like to see that you're either going to take this to a next step, take it to a next project, or you're going to be applying to an R01, K award, so on and so forth. Some of our CTSI services, such as our PD core or professional development core, will help you with your application process after you finish an award period. So if you want to apply to R01, we have R01 writing groups. If you're looking for a K, we have a K group. It's really great to help you out and help kind of bridge that gap from when your pilot group ends to when you go on to the next set. They also want to see feasibility, making sure your project is doable. This also includes the timeline, making sure you're trying to do everything in a reasonable amount of time. Big thing with this is don't try to recruit 800 patients in a month. That's never going to happen. If you talk with the CTSI services, like I said before, including a letter of support there will help them see that, like, oh yeah, you're thinking about this in a lot of ways. Publication track record is important if you're trying to do something very complex, but is not needed. Our pilot grants we like to think of as training grants. So these are help train you, help get up your resume, and help you get a project that you think is a great idea, get it off the ground, and get the funding required to it. So publication track record is nice, but it's not needed if you have a good team to help you out. Appropriate mentors is also good if you're an ESI that has the mentorship agreement, and then just general grantmanship. Make sure it's written well. Reviewers don't like to have to parse things too hard. Just try to make it easier on them. This is what I was saying before. Include table contents if you want. Just make their lives easier, and they tend to score a little bit better. Um, if you have any questions about any of these as well, or if you want to know specific to your approach, whether or not I have any tips, always here to help. I try to reply rather quickly and make sure you feel supported. Additionally, we have a bunch of other services to help both with your grant here, as well as kind of going into the future. So our first one is our study design and biostatistics core. That's kind of so it's our BIRD core, which stands for biostats, epidemiology, and research development. If you were to get a grant with us, all of our biostats service, including getting a biostatistician on your grant, would be free to you without any charge to your grant or out-of-pocket funds. So if you get a grant with us, we support you with the biostats. So if you want to include that in your overall grant, you can include that and just note that you are planning to use bird services, and then you do not have to budget that in, freeing up some more money to use on the actual project. Additionally, WVU applicants can have support from our Clinical Trials Center of Excellence. We'll help you with IRB, help you navigate regulatory stuff, and we even have clinical trial support in the form of clinical coordinators who can help collect data, get patient samples, so on and so forth. Our practice-based research network, which I touched on before, is our group of physicians across the state that work in rural communities that have access to patients that rarely ever see WVU or Marshall hospitals and such. So if you want to reach out and do community work, the practice-based research network is amazing for that. The process for reaching out to them is a form on our website. If you're interested in that, just email me and I'll get you that form. And then a brief consultation to make sure it matches with their priorities. We also have our telehealth group under Project Echo to help with telehealth stuff, our PI Academy to help you with becoming a better PI, external proposal development, and professional development to help take your ideas and take your projects and help them go further. Most of these are free of charge, but the Bird one, I will say, does require funding. So it is a free, once you get an award with us kind of thing. If you have any questions about any of these, I'm a good starting point. We also have the previous pilot grant coordinator, Meg Hardman, is our research services coordinator, who is an expert on all these and can help match what you want to do with what you need to do. So resources, all of our pilot forms live on our website. I'm going to send this PowerPoint out as well. That's where you can find all the templates, all the paperwork you need, all is in one place. Becoming a member is super, super important and will be required if you ever get an award with us. So being a member basically means you sign up for a newsletter. The newsletter, I promise, is the only thing we send to your mailbox. It's a once a week newsletter, and then anytime we release a new funding opportunity or a new opportunity in general, you'll get an email for that as well. This video, as well as all of our previous ones, also live on our YouTube. And then finally, the PI Academy has the whole holistic approach for the panel of experts, as well as some other modules that can help you become a better PI in general. But that's really the long and short of it. Here's my information, as well as our website and the PyStar site where our applications live. Again, I'm going to be sending this out to all registered attendees, but if you have any questions, comments, concerns, I'll leave the floor open to y'all. Laboratory-based research. Yeah, so I said there's a question in chat. The question was, is laboratory-based research allowed for the grant? Absolutely. We do not need it to be preliminary. It could be a project that's already mature. It could be a project that's already getting off the ground. It could be a project that's about ready for manuscript, but just needs that last little bit. We support all of those. We are very open to everything. We want to support you supporting the state, so we're here for you guys.